looking to get super defined curl clumps and spiral ringlets that are long lasting, then you need to try out brush coiling. I'm gonna walk you through how to brush coil your hair step by step and share with you some tips for low density hair or thin curly hair to achieve more fullness. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Gina and here I make videos all about naturally curly hair. I love doing simplified step-by-step tutorials, trying out different styling techniques, and really helping you problem solve with your curls so that everyone can achieve healthier hair. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. I'm so glad to have you here. So I just took my hair down out of my hair repair towel. The roots are towel dried and I'm just spritzing the lengths with water. So typically I like to go in with my curl cream first and I just apply that all over my hair. This is the Curlsmith Hold Me Softly Style Balm. I'm not gonna use too much of this because I don't want it to soften up the gel cast too much, but I do need a base layer of moisture. You want to make sure that your hair is good and moisturized in order to do any type of brush styling because you don't want any tangles. So I'm just going to take my wet brush and make sure that everything is detangled. So I definitely recommend sectioning your hair, especially if you want more precise styling. I usually create about 3 sections. So I do one here, and then I usually split the top section in half horizontally. Also, I feel like when the sections have more of a straight line, it's a little bit easier to pick up the right sections of hair and you don't get all confused. So now I'm going in with the Curlsmith Shape Up Aqua Gel. This is a gel that contains some protein. It's also very liquidy. So you can see the consistency there. You want a gel that has a lot of slip, which is why I'm going with this one. You can also go with the Styling Souffle from Curlsmith. That's a really great slippery option. Also the new Shine Jelly, that's also a very liquidy gel. Anything that has a lot of slip to it is going to help your brush glide better. And this gel is going to give it the right amount of protein without overdoing it. So I personally like to apply my products before I brush style. I think that just gives me better coverage and better frizz protection. So now that I've got the product in, I'm going to start the brush coiling. I'm actually going to be using the Denman brush for this routine because of the unique handle that this has. I actually really love using this brush from Briogeo. It's the vegan boar bristle brush. This one helps give me like very juicy curl clumps because of the dense bristles. But the handle on this is a little bit more flat. I mean, you can definitely still do brush coils with this, but I find a more rounded handle like this one on the Denman is going to be a little bit easier just to create that like curling wand or that ribbon effect on your hair. You need something that's a little bit smoother, and I believe the Denman brush is actually designed to do that. So I'm going to need to pick up wider sections than I normally do in order to do this, but you also don't want to pick up sections that clearly go in a different direction. Just look at where your hair naturally wants to group together. So I think this would probably be a good amount of hair to pick up together, and it's already kind of naturally clumping together, so I know that this is going to work. So I'm going to go over my head. I find that this works at best, especially if I'm going to be turning the brush this way. So the hair is going to wrap around the edge of this brush here. So I'm going to start right at the root. The closer to the root you start, the better, because that's going to give you more root definition. And then turn the brush right away. And you see how the hair is wrapping around the brush right here? That's what we want. I'm still holding it here, and I'm just going to turn it. And then see how the hair is now starting to wrap around the handle of the brush? That's what we want. Typically at this point I would just slide it down, but for a brush coil, I'm going to actually turn it again. And some people like to actually take it all the way down to where the end of the hair comes almost all the way out of the brush, and then they wrap it again. So this is an actual brush coil. And then you don't want to actually just pull this out of your hair. Don't do that. You just want to unravel it. So now we're going in the opposite direction and we're actually unraveling it. And look at that curl. Isn't that crazy? So there's a couple ways of doing it. Like I said, you can just start to turn it as you go down and then just keep pulling it, and that's going to give you a little bit more of a separated look. Or like we did the first time, you can wrap it until it's almost out but still hanging on. That way you don't drop the brush, and then coil it up. And then we're going to unwrap. And as we're unwrapping, we're kind of twirling it too, so the hair is getting kind of finger coiled at the same time. Look at those curls. Now you might be thinking this is going to be time consuming. Definitely is. But what I'm going to do is just go quick with it. The hope is that it's going to help your hair last longer, so that way you have to do less refreshing and hopefully save you time, especially if you're somebody that only like styles your hair once a week. If you do the work up front, then hopefully you won't have to do much during the week. I'm also picking up vertical sections. You see how this is a flat section. It's not a section that goes this way, and that's because we're angling the brush vertically like this. So I'm actually going to separate some of these while my hair is wet because my hair is low density. So if I leave all of these curls very clumped underneath, it's going to look like I have 2 or 3 curls on my whole head. So especially the underside layer, I am going to break these up. You can even take a wide tooth comb like this and actually brush through them. And I know you're probably like, you just ruined everything you just did, but once you go in and scrunch, they will spring back up. So I am going to do that just for the bottom section because I want the bottom section to be a layer that's a lot fuller so I don't get that sparse look, whereas the top, we're going to keep them more coiled. So now that I'm on the other side of my head, I'm still right-handed, but I'm just going to angle the brush downwards like this. And then just start to wrap. It's a little bit more awkward because I'm on the other side of my head and I'm right-handed. Now, if you feel any bit of tugging, make sure that you unwrap it. Don't try and pull that brush out. Another thing that can really help you with root volume, did you see how this piece was kind of like pressed against my head? You want to actually brush it up and away from your scalp. So make sure that that hair is lifted up and back away from your scalp, and make sure that you are pulling that Denman brush upwards, not brushing down. We don't want to do this. That's just going to pull your roots down. You want to see that lift right at the root. So brush it right up, and then you can coil upwards. So I'm still kind of holding it upwards. Okay, so now I need some humidity protection. So I'm actually going to layer the Curlsmith Fragrance Free Shine Gel. It has humidity blocking ingredients in it. It's a level 9 stronghold. The Shape Up Aqua Gel is a very light hold gel. It's only a level 5, which I even think it's probably less than that for my hair. But I need to layer on some humidity blocking because it's very humid in the summer here. I am just spritzing a little bit of water to dilute this gel because it's really thick. And then I'm also going to emulsify it. And this I actually am just going to kind of like glaze and scrunch in just as like a protective layer. You could add this before you brush style if you really wanted to lock in that frizz. And just make sure your hands are wet when you're scrunching wet hair so that way you don't cause frizz. So now I'm just going to clip this section out of the way so that way we don't get it confused with the other sections. So one trick I wanted to show you to be able to tell which direction that the curl goes in, look at the bend of the first curl that's coming at the scalp and see which direction that's going in. That's probably the right direction, but don't overthink it. Usually it'll still work no matter which direction you go in. But if you go in a direction and the hair gets like pulled straight and it doesn't curl up, then just go in the other direction. You can also tell like if you picked up curls from like 2 separate curl families, like they're not meant to actually group together, then you'll know because it won't actually curl and it won't clump. I usually pick up a horizontal section right at the crown area to better cover the scalp, because if I do 2 separate brush coils and like a vertical section, then they're just going to separate and my scalp might show. So instead what I'm going to do is just do a regular curl without coiling it right here. So I'm just like bending the hair over the edge of the brush like that and then pulling it straight up and letting it fall. And then I might just kind of finger coil some pieces so they kind of group together. So this styling technique is especially going to be beneficial right in this section for me where I have a lot of grays, because it's going to kind of tuck them away into curl clumps. So it kind of hides them, and I also have a lot of root frizz right here. I have a lot of new growth that's coming in right here. I also get a lot of breakage, and that's going to really help to tuck all of those shorter hairs away and all of those grays. See all these little short hairs? All of those are going to get tucked away and hidden a lot better with this technique. So this is actually a unique curl to where this one actually curls towards my face, whereas the other hair in this section curls away from my face. And I know that because a lot of times I will do this curl that way and it doesn't curl and it ends up just kind of puffy and frizzy. But now that I curled it in the right direction, you can see it curled and clumped together much better. Another thing I wanted to mention that has really helped, that I've noticed with this technique, is to leave some of the hair and the bristles at the end. That's going to help you actually wrap it and keep the hair in the brush as you're wrapping it, because the end, just barely a little bit of the end is still in the bristles. See it right there? And so that way it's able to hold on as I'm wrapping it, because if you go to wrap it and your hair just falls out, or if it's not even tightly wrapped, it's because the hair has nothing to hold on to right there. So then as I'm unraveling, the end then gets pulled out as I go down. So now that I'm done with all of the brush curls, I'm just going to take my hair repair towel and go around and scrunch out the excess water, because I styled pretty wet and my hair is gonna take forever to dry if I don't do this. I usually use this side of my towel that is pretty wet just so I don't absorb too much water. And if you want even more hold, you can do this and then go in and glaze in your stronger hold gel or just another layer of the gel that you were using. Anytime you put gel on hair that is damp or less wet, it's going to give you a harder cast. Also, if you need to separate any curl clumps, I would do that before you do this because once they start to dry, they're going to turn frizzy if you try and separate them. So I might take a little bit more of my shine gel and then just dilute it with some water and just smooth over any frizzy ends that might have formed. I don't have too many, but might kind of separate some curls like this. Also, just so my hair is not stuck to my scalp, I'm just kind of going in with wet hands and kind of shaking out the root. This can cause some root frizz, so just be careful, but I noticed that whenever I do brush coils, it kind of exposes my scalp a little bit because my hair is low density, so just kind of going around and breaking that up right at the root is going to give more fullness. So I'm going to go ahead and diffuse with my Curlsmith hairdryer and diffuser, and I'll show you guys the results when it's dried. So now that my hair is finished setting, I'm going to scrunch out some of the gel cast with my Curlsmith bonding oil. I just use about 2 pumps of it in my palms, rub it together, and then scrunch out the gel cast from the bottom up. And then I also take my hands and go underneath the hair and just start fluffing all over. I like to do this to lift the hair up off the root and just create some more volume. And it just lifts the hair up off of the scalp because it can get kind of stuck down, especially when you're applying a lot of gel like that. And then I'm just going around and gradually separating some curl clumps that are a little bit too clumped. This is going to help create some more fullness. You might need to add a little bit more oil on your fingers just to make sure that you don't create any frizz, but pay close attention to where the curls are naturally separating. That's where you're going to want to pull the curls apart. You wouldn't want to pull apart a clump that's completely like blended together. That might just cause frizz. So just look at where they're naturally starting to separate anyways. If there is no separation, then you might end up with a little bit of frizz. And if you do, just gently kind of finger twirl them with some oil or even a little bit of water and gel if you need to tame any frizz after separating curl clumps. So here are my final results after the brush coiling routine, and I am shocked how much fullness that I still have in my hair. I definitely think it made a difference with separating and fluffing and using that oil at the end of my routine to really soften up the gel cast, because I thought for sure I wasn't going to have any volume in my hair, especially when I saw my hair after it was finished drying. It had no volume and fullness, but now I definitely have fullness, and I'm really impressed with the curl clumps and just how like juicy that they look with not being super weighed down. So I definitely think the product combination was a really good one. Hopefully this holds up in humidity. I'm going to show you guys how this lasts throughout the week over on my Instagram stories, so make sure you're following me over there. I will put my handle up here on the screen to show you how this holds up, because that will really tell us, is it worth the extra time in your routine to brush coil? So I just wanted to share some of my thoughts and like some pros and cons, I guess, to brush coiling and who I think it's good for. So for one, I don't think brush coiling is good for people who have very damaged hair or people who really struggle with shedding, or if you're struggling with breakage. I think this is just too much tension on your hair if you do have very fragile hair. However, I will say that if you are transitioning your hair, or if you have curls that are just stubborn and they won't curl up, I could definitely see how this could really help give you more defined ringlets. So if you have problem areas in your hair, or if you're really trying to encourage those curls, this is definitely going to do it for you. And that's one of the benefits of brush styling, is it gives you more defined ringlets if you don't currently have ringlets. I also think this is going to be good for people who have very thick curly hair and want to more precisely define their curls, because if you have very thick hair, then this sectioning technique is going to help you make sure you evenly apply your products. And it can help give you more defined ringlets that kind of keeps that frizz sort of tucked away, and can even kind of reduce volume if that's something you're looking to do. So I could see it being good for people who have very thick hair. Now, the downside to this is it can reduce volume in your hair. So if you have low density hair like me, then you'll want to make sure you implement some of the tips that I shared in this video, or kind of just separate them at the end because your hair might fall more flat. I can also see this being very beneficial for people who might have an uneven curl pattern, because anytime you are brush styling your hair, you're creating a more uniform curl pattern. This area of my hair tends to be a lot less curly. It usually looks more straight over here, and maybe it's just the way that I normally style. but the amount of ringlets that I have over here is crazy. So this definitely tells me that this hair can curl up if I give it the right attention. I don't usually want to take the time to brush coil my entire head, but maybe just in the top section or these front pieces, I will definitely be trying this out a lot more. My grays are pretty much completely hidden because they're kind of twirled into those curl clumps versus just sticking out all over the place. I have more curl right at the root, which is something I also got with finger coiling, and brush coiling just helps to start to twirl the hair like right at the hair root, and that helps give you more root volume and also more root definition. So overall, I really like this. I think I'm going to implement it in certain areas. I don't know that I will brush coil my entire head, maybe before a special occasion or if I'm gonna be traveling and I want to make sure my hair lasts longer. So I would love to hear from you. Do you plan on trying brush coiling? How do you plan on doing it in your routine? Do you already brush coil? Do you love it? Let me know in the comments. Is it too much, too time consuming? Definitely let me know. Also, if you're interested in getting any of the products that I mentioned, I will link them for you down below. I also have a discount code for Curlsmith. I can include that too down below. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you should check out the one that I did on finger coiling if you want to see a more detailed routine, especially if you do have damaged hair. You might want to check out finger coiling because that's probably less tension on your hair and it can give you the same effect. So I will put that tutorial here on the screen and I will talk to you over there. Bye everyone.